This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers? Whether you're planting fruit trees, adding privacy, brightening things up with flowers, or bringing in house plants, Fast Growing Trees has it all. Even better, they can help you find options that are right for your climate, your space, and lifestyle. Click Order Grow. Every plant arrives healthy with the Alive and Thrive guarantee straight to your door. So if you're ready to get planting, this is the moment. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WWO at checkout. That's an additional 20% off. Better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WWO at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code WWO. Now's the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WWO to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to growingfasttrees.com for details.
Spring is calling. Weddings, patio sessions, barbecues, and you want that drink vibe without sacrificing tomorrow. That's RK Zero Proof. As the world's first zero-proof spirits brand, RK created the warm molecule, giving you the smooth kick of whiskey or tequila with zero alcohol, 0 calories, 0 sugar, and all the peace of mind you need to enjoy every moment. Step into the zero-proof season at rkzeroproof.com.
Welcome to the Irish NFL show in association with Quinn Bedden, part of the Believe Network. The 2026 draft is almost upon us. If you've been tuning in recently to our content, you'll know we've been looking in depth at the draft needs of each of the 32 teams, going through division by division. If you're checking us out for the first time, welcome. Or if you've missed those previews to date, you'll find them wherever you get your podcasts. In just a few minutes' time, we're going to chat to David Hayes of Bernard Hayes Travel that you saw just in the ad there about that tour and some details of that fan trip to the US for an NFL regular season game during the 2026-27 season. But first, Brian O'Leary, Kieran Donovan, and myself, Conor Brophy, are going to look at some of the key talking points which have emerged as we close in on the draft. Kieran, in terms of what we've been talking about, like we've been looking at a team by team, and some teams obviously have glaring needs and other teams don't. We had that kind of conversation on the show last week when we were going through one of our divisional previews about how ideally every team should be looking at best player available. They don't always end up in the position where they're able to do that, but I think one of the intriguing subplots to this year's draft as we close in on it and as we're looking at what teams are going to actually use their allotted pick in the first round or which teams might trade out of it is there's an emerging sense. In fact, it's not just an emerging sense. It's been hanging over it really since the start of the drafting process as we've all started to look at it, even pre-combine, that the 2026 draft class, certainly the QB class, isn't great. And 2027 is where you would want first round capital. So I think if there's deals to be made, I mean, the economics of the draft is that if you're being offered something that you think is worth more than the value of the pick that you have, you take it, right? All things being equal, unless you have a pressing need for which you want to use that pick. I think there are teams in the first round who, if there are other teams looking at 2027 and thinking, well, I can give up my first round pick, or I can give up a second round pick, or I can trade. I think there are teams that will take your hand off, and the likes of the Howie Rosemans, or even, I dare say, the Dallas Cowboys might actually look to do business to trade down or even out of the first round. The Cowboys have 2 first-round picks. I heard Conor Orr from Sports Illustrated saying, if there was ever a draft where you don't want 2 first-round picks, it's 2026. It's 2027 where you would want that kind of capital.
Yeah, Conor Orr, who we've still got the backlight out for Conor Orr after his mention of us on Heed the Call a couple of weeks ago. But you mentioned 2 of the more fascinating aspects of the draft, especially for people who are quite new to it, including myself. One is the quarterback situation, because you feel like a draft is always about who's going to get the top quarterbacks. Well, there's one general consensus quarterback, and after that, there's a big, huge drop off from what we can see. We're hearing about possibly Ty Simpson being taken in the end of the first round, possibly the second round. But because of the fact that there is that gulf, you really are looking to anticipate what are the rest of the teams going to do. And you mentioned filling the need versus taking the best player available. And it really is, it's a huge guessing game. And you're seeing a massive variation in people's mock drafts throughout. And you're seeing a different variation in people's train of thought.
Which, by the way, is purely notional. And as I set out that argument, I'm thinking, how the hell are we going to know whether the 2027 draft is better than the 2026 draft until we see? Like I saw The Athletic earlier today redrafted, which is a fun exercise to do. Okay, who are actually the top 25 picks based on how they performed on the field in the 2025 draft? And to be fair, like a lot of teams actually nailed it, but I was looking at it, as you do, firstly through your own team's perspective, and they had Ozzie Trapillo and Luther Burden, both in the first round, who the Bears selected in the second round, which suggests they absolutely nailed those picks. But as somebody said, it was on a podcast I was listening to a couple of weeks ago, if you've gone into the draft saying, I'm going to tell you who the best receiver in this draft is, it's Puka Nacua, put your money on it, people would have laughed at you. They would have gone, Puka who? Like, the draft makes fools of us all, ultimately.
Absolutely. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. Then you look at the Atlanta Falcons picking James Pearson, and he may never play for them again, So it's a massive, massive lottery. And you look at going back to the quarterback situation, the likes of, let's say, the Cardinals, the Jets, really, I think we could all agree QB needy teams at this point. You're wondering, what the hell do they do? Are they going to trade up? Are they going to trade down? Now, we were mentioning the Cardinals the other night, and we talked about the possibility of them trading down and maybe taking Ty Simpson to take the pressure off themselves in terms of potentially missing on a big star that they don't potentially need. Another name I heard, or another team I heard about today potentially trading back up are the Jets. And the Jets have a huge amount of draft capital. They have 3 picks in the first 33. And it was Daniel Jeremiah on with Rich Eisen today was speculating that he could see them using not a huge amount of draft capital to take themselves back up into the top 10 even, and have 2 picks in the top 10. And he had them trading back up to number 7, taking Carnell Tate. After taking David Bailey and at the age at number 2. So, I mean, they are a team that really has a chance to make a big difference to their
to your point, and I think we're both converging on the same territory here. If you're a QB needy team, the received wisdom is this is not the year to be taking a QB. You would want that draft capital in 2027. Now, NFL economics work differently to the economics of pretty much any other asset class, where $1 today or €1 today is worth more than €1 tomorrow. In the NFL, the perception might be, if they fancy the 2027 draft class more, that a draft pick in 2027 is actually worth more. So some of those teams may want to move around or may fancy their chances delaying it for a year.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it comes down to media pressure, isn't it? Like, we all think you have to have the quarterback to build the team. Whereas a lot of the time when you pick your quarterback, you're then developing the team around them for a number of years. Look at Cam Ward last year. I mean, Cam Ward's team isn't ready to win a Super Bowl now. So if the Jets can make themselves potentially Super Bowl contenders in the next 3 years, why not build the team now and take the quarterback when the optimum time presents itself?
And Brian, to that point, and it was something that we discussed last week, and I remember Craig saying, I can't remember which team we were talking about, but it might have been, who's picking at 3? Remind me.
Cardinals.
It might have been that you might take Francis Mourinho, say the offensive tackle at 3, because whoever your quarterback is going to be, you're going to need to keep him upright. Craig was making the argument that but do you really want to spend the 3rd overall pick on an offensive lineman? And I guess you do if it turns out that he's an immediate starter and helps protect the quarterback who could be your franchise player. The value of those picks really depends on what your need is as well, which brings us back to the start. It's not always about best available player. The number 3 player off the board, if he's a defensive lineman or even he's an offensive tackle, could be a very valuable pick if you get the right guy.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least 1 discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Yeah, I think there's always a kind of perception that it's just too rich, isn't it, to take an offensive line guy at 3, despite what you say there, Colin, the right thing. And sometimes it's not the snazzy selection, but it's ultimately the best selection because you bring in the quarterback in the future.
Would Jason Kelsey be worth the 3rd overall pick? Absolutely, if you get Jason Kelsey, right? Or Tyler Linderbaum, if you're if you're going to look back at it that way.
I think it's an impact player though the Cardinals really need, isn't it? Because there's so many holes, and in particular, like they have some nice players on defense, and I know it looks like by and large at this stage we're 10 days out from the draft, and every single mock draft has either Reese at 2 and Bailey, or they're switching depending on the opinion. You just spoke with Daniel Jeremiah has Bailey at 2, but you look at Quinbet's odds for the selection, and number 2, Reese is 1 to 3 on, but that's not to say that's going to be what comes about on the night itself. It just feels to me like the Cardinals in particular need impact players, and therefore they will go defense. I'll just throw another one wrinkle at you because and I did see that particular piece today, and it was a very intriguing piece from Rich Eisen around the fact that the Jets could move up, not essentially give up a lot. But the Dolphins are another interesting one dynamic because they've been suggested as a team. We're going to talk about teams who potentially could move from the top 10. They're picking at 11, I believe, and they've got that extra pick from the Broncos, haven't done the Jalen Waddle trade. Is there an appetite for them to jump up and get a player in the top 10? And someone there will rightly be looking at that kind of going, yeah, we'll do that deal with you. Could be the Saints, could be the Giants.
Can you not? The point I'm making is, would you not flip around if you're the Dolphins and say, we have hardly any players, we need to build a whole roster here. Let's trade back when people are taking the view that the picks are more or less valuable, and you might actually get a better offer than you think the pick is worth, and accumulating those extra players might be exactly what the Dolphins need to do right now in an environment where they don't have the quarterback. Well, unless Malik Willis knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, anyway, well, look, we've done the free agency piece on Malik Willis because the contract. It's funny you should say that, Conor, and you're right. Like the Dolphins need to restock, rebuild, and put more players in this organization that allows them to be successful further down the line. It's not necessarily going to be this year. But then you look at that contract in which they gave Malik Willis, and obviously it's on the basis of maybe 6 or 7 games in which we saw him for the Packers, quite compelling performances. But is he going to go in there on that particular contract and find a way to put this team back in shape? I just think maybe it's not as straightforward. I wonder about a new GM and new head coach going in there, kind of now, unless they've been given an absolute reassurance they're going to be there for 4 to 5 years. It kind of feels like they're on a bit of a hiding to go in immediately and expect them just only win 3 or 4 games.
Exactly. Like if you're transplanting Kieran and Donovan the Green Bay method to Miami, which is why Miami hired a former Green Bay executive and the former Green Bay defensive coordinator and Jeff Hafley, what you would do is you trade down, you trade out of the first pick, because the Packers have always approached the draft, and we talked about this as well not that long ago, as a volume game. 2 out of every 5 players we pick are not going to work out. So the more players we pick, the more, I'd rather have 4 out of 10 or my maths is failing me very quickly, or 6 out of 15 or whatever. Like, just pick more players than hope that I pick 5 players and maybe only one of them works out, and I feel like that we're short.
Is that am I right? Is that speculation by accumulation? Is that apt? Is it, or am I completely off the point there? No, look, I mean, that method is fine, and it's one method that has proved to be successful and you can see it in the value that the Packers have I suppose accumulated in wide receivers in late on rounds. But I was only thinking about that the other day in relation to the Rams. We talked about finding the formula for success and trying to imitate different teams. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought when you start to follow a trend simply for the sake of following it, you're losing straight away because you're not thinking about all of the variables. You're not necessarily thinking about the talent, the draft evaluation, the coaching setup. So yes, if the Dolphins have all of those protocols set in place, I mean, if Jeff Hafley is ready to build that culture right now, then yeah, why not go late? If you can try and identify a few of those picks later on in the later rounds, but you just have to make sure you have to be confident in whatever method you choose. It's just like if you're going to say F them picks and go with the Rams and you go with the Rams tried and tested method, you have to have the general manager who's shrewd enough to make the right decisions and make the right trades. So it's horses for courses, I guess.
And I always push back against the idea that F them picks defines the Rams. Like Les Snead uttered that remark and wore the T-shirt, and they famously traded first round picks for Von Miller and for Jalen Ramsey, for established talents to help put them over the top when they won the Super Bowl. But the Rams were in that position because they used their draft picks wisely to build a team. The Rams are in that position because they pick up, free agents in the right way. Who was the coach who said recently, we want to nail free agency so we're not desperate in the draft? Like it's all part of being a smart organization. You understand the value of picks, whether you're accumulating them or whether you're trading them for a player. I think Les Snead was being kind of facetious in the way he said that. He knew exactly what he was doing with those first round picks. You weren't going to get a better player than Jalen Ramsey or than Von Miller at that point in time when they needed them most. We'll have plenty more draft talk coming up. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to look ahead to that epic NFL trip coming up in season 26-27.
Spring is packed patios, parties, wedding weekends, and RK Zero Proof keeps you in the mix without the morning after regret. As the original Zero Proof Spirits brand, RK's Warm Molecule gives you that real deal burn of whiskey or tequila with none of the alcohol. 0 calories, 0 sugar, and a whole lot of freedom to enjoy the moment. Sip smarter this season at rkzeroproof.com.